What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Better Biomed. Today I've got a couple of these Integra Xenon light sources that are failing, and guys, these light sources are slowly but surely getting phased out, but these are still a staple in many surgical rooms because of the frequency of the light, the color temperature, the intensity of the light, and the compatibility with all the different types of scopes, etc. These guys are absolutely everywhere. But nonetheless, there's only a couple places that fail on these machines routinely, and I have not plugged these things in at all. I have no idea. So we are going to do this live and figure out why they're failing. So the first thing you should be aware of is that light sources emit a very high intensity light. So when I test these systems out, I generally turn the turret a little bit off. There are shutters in some of these, and I don't take a chance at whether or not it is, so I turn it off so that none of the apertures are open, because you could get burned. So the things that we're going to be aware of is any weird smells coming from the inside. Now, these units here, I've seen stickers on the other one that says that they are not part of a PM program, that there's no PM required, and this is going to be a little bit of a rant, guys, because I'll tell you right now that absolutely pisses me off, because these light sources can and do catch on fire. I've done a video where one caught on fire because it was not being maintained correctly. Guys, it is a unit that does get dirty, and they do need to be cleaned. And today I'm going to show you how to check them and also how to maintain them. Because your PM on these guys is not to just plug it in, check it real quick, or just to do electrical safety. These units have active cooling, they need to be opened up, and they need to be vacuumed out. Because they're going to be in between a doctor and a sterile field. They're right in the middle. That's where they park them when it comes to an operating room. They're not back behind the sterile field. So that means the exhaust ports on the back of this guy are actually exhausting towards the sterile field. You have to make sure that these guys are kept clean. No PM required is absolute garbage. And that is the world that we live in, where everybody says that Biomed is all about patient safety, etc. I can prove that these things do catch on fire. And I can prove that it's a sanitation issue if they're not kept clean. But so many hospitals put these on no PM required. That's just clear indicator of a bunch of suits that are running Biomed programs, in my opinion. Okay, guys, so this one says it's not working. Let's go ahead and plug it in, rant over. I'm done being upset about it at the moment. Alright, so you turn it on, and I get nothing. Alright, so when you flick on this guy here, you should have something. I definitely have AC mains coming in. Okay. So that could be a power supply. I've also seen where the power switch itself is defective. And one other time I've seen where the AC import module had some problems with the wiring. You never know if these units have been dropped. So let's go ahead and, oh, look at that. AC input module popped right out with me just trying to disconnect the cord. That's a bad sign. Okay, here, let's try that again. Disconnect the power. And for all these light sources, there's going to be, for the Integras, there's two Phillips screws right here on the back. You can see this one. And that is just for the top cover. The top cover is mainly for aesthetics. Now, if the power supply is not bad in these, then it's usually the bulb itself. But that doesn't explain why we have no power to our front display. We should still have power on the display, it just wouldn't ignite the bulb if it was the bulb that was bad. So now I'm targeting more so for the power supply. I can see some of these Phillips screws, that one's missing. Some of them have already had a hot supper. That one's missing, that one's missing. So somebody's already been inside these, which, as I already explained, during PMs, they should be. So if somebody's using a Phillips number 1, which these ones here are PH1s, these ones here are Phillips 2s, there is a difference, folks. And that's why it's best to have both drivers. too many techs try to do the same job with one driver bit, and it doesn't work. Right here, it does pull the screw out, but notice how the driver is not fitting into the screw correctly. So it is a PH1. I can't tell you how many fasteners have been boogered up by technicians who don't use the correct tool. So pulling off the side panel here, I have access to the AC mains. The push button on the front is connected to the back with a long light tube. I think it's a light tube, but it's really just a clear plastic tube, and it pushes down the push button, which is located right here. I'll show you that as soon as I get the front cover off, or the top cover off. There's a lot of fasteners on this. Now, mind you guys, it is not safe whatsoever to operate a light source without the proper covers on. They do emit a crazy amount of ultraviolet light, and they will burn you. They will burn you bad. And that's why I close the aperture on the front, is to prevent myself from getting burned. Okay, so this guy is now off. Place it off to the side. And this here is the bulb cover. I'm going to leave that on at the moment because it is not suspect on this particular device. Now, one of the things that I want you guys to pay attention to is right up here, there's a long screw that holds the back cover, and this guy hits an interlock. And interlock disconnects the AC mains whenever one of the covers is removed, and there's a micro switch right here that disconnects mains. So your power supply will not even get mains if the top cover is removed. So what we want to do is we want to put a screw back in this hole and then listen for the little click. Right there it is. Hear that? Click off, click on. Now just because you hear the click doesn't necessarily mean that AC mains is getting through, but just to be sure. You know, we will get a probe and we will check for AC power all the way to right here. Now I can see that my neutral is kind of sliding off right there. It's kind of off. So I'm going to be careful. This is a high voltage power supply. There is built up power on this power supply. You have to be careful. Right here is a high voltage circuit. So the way that these bulbs work is it's low amperage, high voltage to ignite the lamp. And then once the lamp is ignited, then it switches over to a low voltage, high current state in order to keep the ignition going. So right now, I'm just checking some of these jumpers. I'm very aware that right here is the high voltage circuit. There's a high voltage tank there. And I probably would get zapped, depending on the last time that this guy was turned on. Alright, so by the looks of it, we're good. I don't see any real problems other than the fact that this guy is popping out. So this is an input module, and one of the things I like to do for these guys is spread these ears a little bit, and these ears will keep it retained when it's pushed in. So see these little ears right here and right here? Yep, just pry those up a little bit, and when you push it in the panel, they will hold it in. There we go. Alright, so this guy's in. Now this is a fused unit, but I don't believe there's fuses in it. Maybe there are. Oh, smack. Look at that. There are fuses in it, and right here I have a 250 volt that is absolutely smoked. Let's see, how many amps is that? We have 6.3 amps. Okay. Let me see if I've got another mini fuse, 6 point something amps. Okay, folks, I have my 6.3 amp right here, 250 volt. So it should be a direct replacement. Now, you should be aware that these things happen for a reason. So if it popped that fuse, the chance that it's going to pop my replacement fuse, it's almost a certainty. Now what you should do is you should have this guy plugged into an electrical safety analyzer, and then you should run it on amps to measure how many amps this guy's pulling. I do believe I have that set up someplace here, so I'm going to have to get my electrical safety analyzer, try that out. And I do believe everything here is good to go. So we have the interlock in. I still have the lamp for the most part covered, so it's somewhat safe for me to operate. Let's go now. Let's go ahead and just plug it in. If it smokes this fuse, it's going to smoke this fuse, and that would be a definite power supply issue. Okay. There we go. I believe that's off. And I think it just smoked that fuse. That happened so quick. Not even a chance to react. Oh, of course that guy's going to pull back out. I adjusted the ears on the top, but not the bottom. Okay, let's disconnect power. So that means I have a dead short someplace further up the line. Just pop this guy out. And I bet you it smoked the fuse. And there we have it. It sure did. Okay, so that would be the fuse on the neutral side, I believe. Alright, let's go ahead and leave the second fuse here. Let's just check. Let's see if we have a shorted power supply. Okay. Let's put one here. Let's check the ground. We're good. Okay, that is line hot. This right here is neutral. Okay, so to ground, I'm good. Okay, on the power supply itself, I'm good. So let's go back. Let's try from ground. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm probing the different line options to see if I have a dead short. Now I do have a EC filter down here, and it is possible that I'm shorted at that AC filter. So I'm going to disconnect the hot and the neutral. It's showing completely open. Okay guys, here we go. I have the unit currently set up with the brand new 6.3 amp fuses, and the power is connected. I have the hot lead off of the main PCB, and we're going to check and see if we have power and if it's going to pop a fuse. If it pops a fuse, then that means we have a defective AC filter or maybe a defective AC input module. We don't know that yet, so let's go ahead and let's connect our multimeter up here to our lead, and let's turn the power on. Okay, now let's go to neutral. There we go. There's our 120 volts. So it did not pop the fuse, and it's only popping the fuse. We go 120 volts there. So it's only popping the fuse when the power is connected to the power supply. Dang, that means that that power supply has got some issues. Okay, folks, let's go ahead and take that out. Let's check the bulb, disconnect power. Okay, so we just had this guy energized earlier when it popped the fuse, so there could be still voltage on that high voltage tank. So let's be very careful of that. Let's inspect that bulb and see if we have any signs of issues. Looks pretty clean. And I do have some arcy spark down there on the parabolic reflector. So this bulb is technically bad. So let's try it without a bulb connected. So I'm going to connect my lead back up to the power supply. And let's go ahead and connect the power up. And let's see if it pops the fuse. Interesting. So the bulb is not in it. I have power. You can hear it. I have fan. So the fan is a big indicator that we have 12 volt. And my front display is on. So the bulb itself is high voltage arcing. I've never seen this in my career. Interesting. So we can disconnect that. Let's disconnect that. So the unit is drawing way too much current because of the bulb. Let's disconnect the power. So this guy here might be okay. It's a little bit dirty. See the fan inside? Those are the kind of things that need to be cleaned with the PM. So the exhaust fan and the cooling fan for the bulb, those have to be cleaned. And any dust bunnies that are caught on the back grill, definitely recommended. I don't see any problems with the silicone wiring, because sometimes there might be discoloration and some problems with that insulation. Looks like it's okay. So it's not shorting to ground. In other words, it would have popped that fuse. Let's check out the bulb. So for these bulbs here, I don't have my nut driver, so I'm just going to use the pliers. I'm going to take these studs out. And let's check the heatsink itself, because on these type of bulbs, the heatsink transfers energy to the bulb. So if there's anything shorting out the heat sinks, you're going to have a short inside. That looks really clean, guys. Really clean all the way around. It's got a ceramic insulator that are separating the two. So let's check it. We're on ohms. Okay, so there's no direct relationship to the two whatsoever. So high voltage wise, it's just arcing down inside on the parabolic, and that's why it popped the EC mains fuse. Who knew? How crazy is that? Anyway, guys, that is a quick step-by-step troubleshooting of a Xenon light source. Can't say I've ever really seen a problem like that, like a bulb creating the issue. Now, I'm not saying that the bulb is the entire issue. It's going to get a replacement Xenon bulb, and then once we get the replacement, then we're going to test that power supply under load again. It's possible that there's a component that's failing on the power supply, and once you put any sort of load whatsoever on it, it starts internally arcing and popping the fuse, drawing too much current. But because I can see the dark arcy spark on that parabolic reflector, that's telling me that there's an electrode that's way too close, or this bulb is way out of spec, and that is drawing too much current. That is drawing too much current from the power supply, and that's why it's popping the 6.3 amp fuse. It's a tiny little fuse, and there's not too much to go for. Start with the bulb, and we're going to clean the fans, and get it back together, and test it out. There you go, folks. Clean your power supplies, clean the fans, and make sure that your bulb, do a physical inspection on it during the PM. Check to make sure that there's no discoloration of the parabolic reflector, and if there is, replace that bulb, because it's getting out of spec and it's getting old, and it's just going to cause other failures of other components, as you've seen today. Thanks for watching, folks. Hope you like videos like this. If you do, give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate it, and stay tuned. We've got other stuff that we're going to be tearing apart today and creating more videos.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below with what you'd like to see in future videos.